I'm Sangeetha Wiley, and this is part of our series of global isolation chats. Today, I'm chatting with Sarita in New York City. And Sarita, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Thank you, Sangeetha. We and I've we go back very far, so it's good to chat with you. So my name is Sarita Akia, and my husband and I own a restaurant called Smack, short for Sarita's Macaroni and Cheese, in the East Village of New York City. We are in our 14th year of operation with the business, and in our former lives, I was a mechanical engineer, and my husband a software engineer, and we have been restaurateurs and business owners for longer than we were doing those other jobs. So I guess these are our official titles now.
I love your story, by the way. I feel like you need to go into your story a little more because it's inspiring how you switched from,
Yeah, sure. So back in 2005, my husband and I were living in Manchester, New Hampshire, both working in our engineering professions, and we used to go to New York City regularly, like even if it was just for a day, like leaving at 8 in the morning and coming back past midnight, because we love the city so much. So we said, oh, one day we're going to move there. One day we're going to move there. And then one Memorial Day of 2005, we were driving back from New York City, and we're like, you know, we keep saying this one day, let's just do it. So we quit our jobs. We liked the companies we were working for. We gave them like a decent time frame, and we said, okay, by September 1st we'll move. And then we got into June, and we're like, why are we waiting so long? So July 31st, we upped and left, basically sold everything we owned, and landed a sublet in the East Village neighborhood of Manhattan, which is where we still are now. 15 years later, we love this neighborhood, and we literally it was 2005, the job market was pretty strong, so we figured we'd just get engineering jobs, and so be it. But we did promise each other one thing. We said we'd either get engineering jobs or get jobs in a profession and that we love, or just take jobs that were being offered to us if we ran out of money. So we literally went in knowing, okay, we're going to enjoy the city. We're going to take our time finding a job we love, each of us. And we had some job offers. Actually, Caesar had a few, and I was like on third and fourth interviews, but nothing was resonating with us. And in the meantime, we were eating out like crazy, like that. We became like instant New Yorkers in the food realm for sure, because we just started eating like every meal out. And we were at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich place. And I said to Caesar, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a place that did this and grilled cheese and mac and cheese? Oh, mac and cheese, that's the next restaurant we're going to eat at. Because there were so many of these niche restaurants, we assumed, of course, there has to be a mac and cheese place too. And there wasn't one. And we're just like, oh, this is a really good idea. And we couldn't let it go. And literally, like, it was fast. 9 months later, we opened up Smack. So it was like, we got this idea. We just moved with it, as you know, it just felt right to us. And we were already kind of in that space that we just left kind of everything we knew behind for this new life, per se. So it didn't feel like it was this huge risk to us. You know, it just felt so natural and normal. And also, we did want to own our own business. We did talk about that in the past. We just thought it would be something engineering related, because that's what we knew.
Yeah. And here we are 14 years later, since the first opening of Smack, because you've had a few. You have a kiosk still, yes?
No. So we are back down to one location. So we had an original location on 12th Street. Then we opened up a kiosk. You're right. Then we also opened up a larger location in Midtown Manhattan. And subsequent to that, so then we closed the kiosk. Then our Midtown location, post Hurricane Sandy in 2017, we moved our original location to a bigger spot that it's just like a really beautiful space right on the corner, so the visibility is great. So we're back down to one that we're really happy about and love. The footprint is great. We have an amazing staff, but you know, it's a small business. We see the ups and downs. This is probably the most hardship we've seen. Like, we've been through Hurricane Sandy, seemed like it was such a blow to us, and now we're in a completely different realm of hardship.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because you've been through Hurricane Sandy. I mean, I was actually at both your locations in New York, your original location in East Village and the one in Midtown. Right, and they're both beautiful locations. What's it like right now, having gone through this stuff? This is so different, right?
It's it's so different. It's so weird. Just seeing New York in this, like, it's like New York is amazing. And I saw this poster the other day that, it was like I heart New York, like I heart New York more than ever. And I just stopped and like, I do. But you walk around the city and you're like, oh my gosh, this is New York City. It's, some places really are literally like a ghost town right now. Um, yeah, so it was mid-March, I think, March 15th, 16th timeframe when everything kind of, that's when I say all hell broke loose. Like, that was when the mandates were on and it was just like, oh my gosh, we need to lock in and changes need to be made. And that's when for the restaurant itself, uh, a few days before that, there was some loosey things that we picked up on, but nothing really like said clearly about how all the restaurants had to be reduce their capacity to 50%. So we took some tables out and did all that. But then that Monday, it's either March 15th or 16th, there was the mandate that you have to just switch over to only takeout and delivery. Uh, and that was like by 8 p.m. that Monday night. So for us, we had to obviously make changes, but we're also very lucky in that we've already navigated the takeout and delivery world. We've been in this business for a long time, and we've been offering that for a long time. It just was, okay, how do we now make it? First off, can we keep staying open with the amount of business we'll have right now? You don't know, it's an unknown. Can you keep staying open and keep it safe for your staff and for your customers? So it was all of those things. So that midweek in March, that first week where we had to do this, it was, I don't know, it was so emotional. It was like the first day, like in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're all gonna be out of jobs. No one's gonna be able to like put groceries on the table. Like it was just like this, what is gonna happen kind of like devastation. Then we figured it out. We were able to stay open, reconfigure the restaurant, check in with all the employees, all of that. And we realized, okay, we can stay open. Let's just see how to staff it. So that first week was super heartbreaking for me because I did have to let go of 2 part-timers, and most of my staff have been with me like for like 9-10 years still, right? So I was like, I do not want to let anyone go. So these guys were relatively new compared to everyone else. But the other staff, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are like family, literally. And how is anyone going to get other jobs right now? So my goal was to at least give them more than what they would get should they file for unemployment. So I kept everyone on 4 shifts instead of 5 shifts, everyone who wanted to stay, and that was everyone. So that was good. I felt better, but I still felt like, oh my gosh, like that's really hard. It's really hard to sustain a life in New York City without a full paycheck for anyone. It's an expensive city, right?
One of the most expensive cities in the world.
Yeah.
And one of the most resilient cities in the world.
Yes. It definitely, New York strong is definitely a thing. It's the real deal, right? Uh, so that being said, that was kind of the initial, oh my gosh. And then we ran a couple weeks and we were able to figure it out. We're like, okay, we are able to pay our staff, we're able to pay our food bills, to get more food in, to sell back out again. But like rent, I mean, we're still not paying rent. Our landlord has been amazing. We're still not paying rent. Utilities, some are getting paid, some aren't, so it's a matter of like nothing. It's like we're only paying what we need to survive right now, but it's it's okay. We're okay. It's just the 6 weeks has been long, and you just don't know how much longer it's going to be. I was also walking today, and I was like, I feel like New York, the curve is flattening somewhat, but it was a little bit scary because then I was also walking around our neighborhood and like, oh, you can tell the curve is flattening because people are a little bit looser now, right? So there should be people, everyone should be wearing masks. Not everyone was wearing masks today. It was a beautiful day outside. You see people in groups on corners talking to each other. I'm like, oh, so that also is just so scary, right? That I just don't, there's just too many emotions that we're all going through. So it's like, I've got the emotions of all of that, what's going on with personally, but then you also have to add the business into it. And that's where I'm like, I'm not just concerned for myself, my husband, my kids and friends. It's like my staff is a huge concern. And we check in with them every week just to make sure that they feel comfortable, because a lot of them are taking long train rides in, and the trains in New York City are a mess right now. They are, they are packed because a lot of the cars are being taken out by homeless people, which again, I feel for them because they are one of the most vulnerable populations right now, but they're taking over cars and trains. So then everyone is squeezing into other trains, and they're only at 75% capacity net trains running. So, it's just the snowball effect again in a very large city with 8 million people in it. So
It sounds like people are actually coming together and tolerant of this kind of thing as well. Yeah.
yeah. There's definitely, there's more tolerance. There's also, you're always going to get, there's always the people who are going to be more, people are wound up, people are on edge, people have nerves, right? It's like everyone's kind of, so there are people you'll see who get very upset with oh, you got too close to walking to them, or what, there's a lot of that going on too. But I think for the most part in general, there is the tolerance for other things that maybe people weren't tolerant about before is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about your rent because you have a good landlord, or are there things in place by the government to protect people?
So right now, no landlord is able to take you to court on anything. My landlord is actually lovely. They've been really great to us from day one. So, and I just keep in touch with them because I'm like many other small businesses waiting for some government assistance that we did not get in the first round.
Why
Yes.
not? You would be the type of small business that would qualify.
Yes. Here's the thing. I understand that there's just so many people in the same boat, but what's happening is the federal government had this multi-billion-dollar fund that ended up getting dispersed according to the accommodations they made for larger sized organizations and whatnot. When you look at the process of it, it's if you had some kind of inroad, you were probably going to get money. Your application was going to get pushed through or seen first. And I have a great relationship with my bank, Capital One, and I wasn't even able to apply for funds before they ran out. Like, it was that backlogged with other applications pushing through. And I've heard this story from many people. So now the federal government has added money to the fund, and there's a lot of people upset with Ruth Chris and all these other, right?
I read about that. Yeah, the idea that these bigger corporate entities that have chains were applying for this, and their chains across the country, which, how do you compete with that?
Right. Caesar and I have a kind of I shouldn't say different, but our attitude towards that is we don't blame them. They applied for it because the application was as such. It allowed them to apply for it. So either the federal government should offer way more money than they did, or they changed their application. So, you see someone like Shake Shack apply for it too, but then as soon as they found out what happened, they returned the money, right? So these organizations didn't know that small businesses weren't going to get it. They also need the money. They also employ many, many people and want to pay their employees. So I get it. I get why it's not their fault. It's wonderful that they returned it, but it's the federal government that either you make clear that you have an application X, Y, and Z funds for true small businesses and stay true to that, or you add more funds, a lot more funds, so that everyone gets a piece of the pie. So it's a tough one. Yes, they are larger organizations, corporations. They probably could somehow raise funds, but if they were allowed to apply for them, and they're thinking that, and I'm sure a lot of these larger corporations are thinking, of course the small businesses are going to get it. They only need like 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever, right? Like, why wouldn't they get those small amounts? Like, that's all we need.
I think we're in a situation where, have you heard of the expression baptism by fire?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like nobody knows what's going on. Yesterday is not the same as today, and the rules are changing everywhere for everyone.
Exactly.
You have a takeout and delivery model. You did have to change a few things. And I want you to talk too about like what I read the other day, which was you guys are actually, through the help of others, I think, donating to the frontliners.
Yes, we are, which has been like a spark of joy, I think, amidst a lot of this darkness. So we did have to, right away, we did have to change. Like, we we literally reconfigured the front of our restaurant to have, we're lucky our windows open up onto the sidewalk, so people can kind of actually not even enter the restaurant and just self-order at a kiosk. So we reconfigured that. We also basically, we were like, okay, what do people need right now? So we came out, we like accelerated something we've wanted to do for years, and we created the freezer kit, like a take-home freezer kit. So you can just throw that thing in your freezer for months if you need to, and just kind of pop it out when you need to make it. So that's good, and that's a new thing that I think people are appreciating. But we started actually very early on, again, like mid-March, we started getting requests from hospitals to actually donate some food or provide lunch or dinner for shifts. And we love to donate. We love to give back to the community. That's one reason we actually love having our own business, to be able to do things like that and be like, okay, this is what we can give back to where we live. And we were getting these requests, and Caesar and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do it? Like, we don't even have enough money to pay our staff and to keep we don't even know. Every day we're like, are we keeping our doors open? Are we closing? Are we keeping, that kind of thing. So
even to pay yourself, because you're not paying your rent.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So then we were talking about it, and the sister was like, maybe we should reach out to our community. And I was actually a little hesitant at first. I'm like, oh, people are going through such hard times and whatever. And then we were like, okay, well, let's figure this out. We're like, there are people we know who haven't. There's people who are working from home who haven't lost their income, right? They are actually, and they're not spending on it as much because they're not eating out or doing those things. So we're like, okay, let's reach out. Let's reach out on social media and to our email list. We got a really good response right off the bat. It was amazing. And it was not only, it's not only people who have the financial means to do so, because we're getting like donations of, $500 to $5. Those $5 people are probably struggling themselves, but they just want to do something for people who are risking their lives every day in hospitals. And my heart is like, every time I see one of those, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We've gotten so many lovely emails too from people saying, we feel helpless and we want to do something. Thank you for giving us a conduit for doing something. I'm like, listen, we can't do it without you guys. We couldn't do it, right? We're like the messengers here. Like, this is other people's generosity. And we started this the first week of April. We've fed 1,000 people.
wow,
We've got another 500 lined up, and we're just going to keep doing it as long as we can.
It's good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love your optimism. I always have. You've always been so optimistic and positive, and even through this, where you don't even know if you can pay your rent, you're still finding a way to help others, and that's amazing.
Well, I think, at the end of the day, we're like, I'm still able to put food on the table for my family. I'm still able to, I'm lucky I have a 5-minute walk to work. There's a lot of things that I do, that I am very thankful for. My husband and I drop these deliveries off personally, and the graciousness and just the appreciation for the food when you're dropping it off to these people who are working like tiring, exhausting, mentally and physically exhausting shifts. And one guy the other day just did a little dance too. Oh my God, I made him do it again. I'm like, did you just dance for me? He's like, yeah. I really didn't appreciate the dance enough the first time. Can you give it to me the second time? Because I was wondering if you just try and take this food or it's actually meant for you. And so he did the dance again. I did not record it, but I'll tell you, that was like one of the biggest belly laughs I've had in months. And it was just so awesome. And I'm like, and he's the one who provided me with so much happiness, right? I'm like, this guy's like working, exhausted in a COVID unit, and you're making me laugh.
It's the small things. And the one thing we can't have is to be able to hug somebody outside of our people that we're isolating with, or to touch somebody, or to like get together with people. So it's what we're finding out is it's the small things, like somebody doing a dance for you. It's like,
it was great.
Amazing. Yeah. And so you guys are delivering, and you haven't done that before, like personally.
Yeah. So this was something that when we decided we were going to do that, I was talking to Susan. I was like, listen, we already have our staff. They're coming in on trains every day. And I was like, I don't want to even have to ask them to go to a hospital and do a delivery. I feel like they're already doing that part of the stressful commute. So I I was like, I would prefer for us to do it. And then at the end of the day, now I'm actually benefiting from it because I'm getting so much joy doing it, just actually like coming face to face with these people who are really just so appreciative, and it's very humbling.
And what about your kids?
Yeah, the kids are doing the kids are all right.
The kids are all right. How old are they now?
They're 10 and 7, and they're homebodies. They're becoming too much of homebodies, actually. Like, they don't really want to leave the house. Like today we forced them, it was beautiful outside, we forced them to go for a walk. Like, oh gosh, they're kind of becoming couch potatoes, but they love the family unit together. So for them not to have to go to school has been kind of a blessing for them. I have to say the first couple weeks of that was, I didn't know what I was going to do, because I was like, first we're struggling with ideas and things. How do we make SMAC survive? Right. I'm like, now I have to actually sit down with them and do homework and remote learning. And so my 5th grader, Purin, he's self-sufficient now. Being in 5th grade, he asked for a little bit of help, but my 2nd grader is like, he needs someone with him. Like, that's just the way it is. Right. So at one point, Caesar was like, I think you're stressing out too much over this. I'm like, you know what, I probably am. So I eased off. They're still, they're doing their remote learning, but I'm not so militant about it now. At the end of the day, as long as they are happy and they feel safe, then everything else can be figured out.
There's no need to be a super mom right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's just to be there, to be loving. And then the other thing I was going to ask you about was, because in New York, a lot of people don't live in their apartments, in the sense that, life is outside the apartment, like it is in a lot of places in Europe. And I remember visiting you, and, the kids had a playground to play with other kids, and you would take them out and it was all like this community sort of feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is weird to not be with the community, and like you said, even if you just know someone by sight, like, it's such a small world in that sense here. Like, you're within, even though New York is so big, you actually are within your neighborhood, and like, you don't really leave it that much, they seem okay. The nice thing is, they're really active in their Cub Scout troop, and that their troop has been doing weekly meetings on Wednesdays, so they get to see their friends that way. And then they FaceTime some of their other friends.
So I'm just trying to imagine what your day is like, because you've got kids at home, you're taking care of them, but you're also taking care of the restaurant, you're doing these deliveries. Your days must be long.
The days are, they're not super long. They're just a little hectic, for sure. Like, there's just, once we because now we were doing one hospital delivery day, but now, like, tomorrow we've got 2, Monday we have 3. So it's just, so, which is why we actually just rented a car to be able to do all of this. So it's just more of like, we need to calendar things. And Caesar and I, thankfully, just this year in 2020, we became really good at calendaring everything. Like, it was like, finally I have some semblance of like scheduling and like organization that I've needed desperately in my life.
Yeah, it helps to have a schedule, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I picked that up from one of my girlfriends who had to put a schedule for her kids. And I thought, yeah, I've got to do the same thing for myself, just in order to keep like chunks of time going, just to keep your day moving and not be stuck in one task forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And time is so weird right now, isn't it?
I think it's like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's like when we look back, there'll be a blip where all we talked about and revolved around was this virus. Like, we're not really hearing news about anything else.
Right.
Yeah. And the days, just, I don't even know what day it is,
Exactly.
Or if I had a shower this morning, I have to think about that,
You just don't have those references anymore. Like, okay, I got up and I went out to do this. So yes, I did take a shower and I did do, you don't have those references now.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And, well, I have to ask you, because of, you grew up in Nova Scotia, and that was sad news.
Oh
last weekend.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. It just doesn't even seem real still. And, I had multiple Zoom calls with my friends, like different pockets of friends from Nova Scotia, and not all of us living there. So it was like, we feel removed, but still so saddened. Like, it's just like, oh, we're so far away. And we kind of feel like you want to be there for all of your friends who are going through this. It's just, there's so much going on right now that, first of all, for something like that to happen in Nova Scotia is just mind blowing. But it also kind of reminded me of like, this COVID-19 has taken over our lives, and it's almost hard to even believe that there's other things that could happen outside of this. Like, I unfortunately also had a friend from high school who passed away too in Bali and it was very random, from dengue fever. And when I got the news, I'm like, how is that possible? Are you sure it wasn't COVID-19? Because you feel like everything right now is COVID-19, right?
You want to blame it for everything.
Yeah. And it's like,
right?
how is anything else still happening? Like, how are these other deaths happening? How are these other like huge things happening outside of it? Because right? Because this is so big. And then for this thing, I was like, it's still so incomprehensible to me about, first off, Canada. Like, I've been living in the States since 2002. And I always kind of think of, if things are a little bit awry here, and I love New York, so I feel like, we'll stay here for a while, but I always think in my head, well, I always have that home in Nova Scotia, right?
I think so many of us, I grew up in Newfoundland, and
right.
and also spent like 8 years in Nova Scotia, and I always have that in my back pocket, like, oh,
Yes.
I could always go back, right?
Right.
Even as much as you love where you are,
Yeah.
there's that deep connection to where you grew up, where you were born.
Yeah.
And when this happened in Nova Scotia, of course, I felt the same heartache, because because it's different growing up in a place that has these small communities where everyone sort of knows everyone, or knows of everyone.
That's the thing. There's no 6 degrees of separation from this. Like, it was as soon as this happened on that Monday morning on my newsfeed on Facebook, I would say probably every third friend of mine from Nova Scotia knew someone personally, or their spouse knew someone personally, or their, sister knew someone. I was like, this is the 1 degree of separation at this point. And you realize, oh, wow, I forgot how small of a place and how connected we are to one another.
Yeah. And that connection hopefully will get them through this. It's really heartbreaking to think that they can't actually, that there's all this social distancing in place. And the thing about needing to grieve and needing to mourn, it can't be done physically, right? With people.
I totally believe what you say, though. I think that being so connected is going to help everyone. And I think, again, that's kind of what it's great, because then social media has its ups and downs and goods and bads. But one of these things it does, there are these kitchen party groups and other groups that, that are all sharing and they're grieving together. And that's when I'm like, yeah, social media is playing a very positive role right now.
It sounds like an Irish wake, although I guess it's New Scotland, but same idea.
Right.
That's the thing, is that we got to count our blessings and be grateful, and all the things that are, that will help us get through this, because there's no end to unfortunate events happening in this world. New York has been through 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and now this, who knows what in between. And when you think about it, the recession that's affected everyone, but we're all still standing.
Yeah. We're here, and we'll get through it. It just, I think it's the amount of people it's affected, and the longevity of it, right? So it's like it's twofold here, and the uncertainty.
The unknowns.
There's so many unknowns right now, and that's kind of why I feel like we're taking everything day by day. Like, we have to look ahead and kind of somewhat plan, but we also have to take it day by day, because you just don't know.
What do you do for grounding?
Yeah, I feel like lately, and this is only more recently that I've actually thought about it. I'm like, okay, I'm probably turning into a crazy woman. And I also noticed I was on a screen way too much. Like, I just felt like I'm always trying to do something. I'm like, I'm not even being productive in front of my screen, right? So now I make sure that I take a walk almost every day. That's a big one for me. And then, I love to read, but I just haven't been reading for months. And so I just picked up a fiction book, and even just reading one chapter, I'm like, oh, it is nice to escape. Lying on the couch, reading a book while the kids are reading their books too, just like being together, but everyone's also being quiet, which is nice, because that gets hard when you've got 2 kids at home all day. They're not super loud, but it's still, they're 2 kids, and it's there's always someone in your face for something, right?
And as they should, because they're kids, they're not adults, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to be who they are. They're kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so many things. I think it's funny because I think there's two streams. There's the stream that you start off with this all this energy and being able to navigate, but then at some point you might find it gets tiring. Like week 6, people are starting to feel like they need to get out of their house and they need to go out. And I hear stories of people in, for example, in Toronto, and they're all out. They're kind of bending the rules for social distancing,
Yeah.
right? And then there's the other spectrum of people that maybe started off like couldn't get out of bed and worried and everything else, but are finding their second wind now. So,
Yeah.
and everyone's got to follow their own path. And because we don't know how long this is going to take, we just got to surrender to whatever that is for ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
Yeah. And how is your mom doing?
She's good. She's on her own. So I
Yeah.
was super concerned at first. I'm like, oh, are you going to be okay? Like, how lonely is it going to be? She giggles and she's like, this is not much different than my regular life. I know everyone thinks I'm so social, but so she talks to all her family members every day. She talks to her friends every day.
What a crazy journey this is going to be, and we'll all get through it, and then we're going to look back and go, okay, what was that? But it's going to have made us stronger. For a lot of people, it's about relearning how to balance. We don't have to go to every event. For instance, there's a balance between the social and then what you have to do for your job, and then what you have to do for whatever that balance looks like. For some people, they work so hard, 12-hour days. It's discovery. It's like holding the mirror up to yourself and actually seeing yourself. Hello, I haven't seen you in so many years for some people, right? Like really just, and at the same time, this is obviously a really hard time for so many people. Like I'm sure you also know people that, because New York is being hammered by this, right?
Yeah. 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 It is being hammered. We've seen some better stats as of late, which is good. But yeah, like one of my good friends, her brother, who was only 28, passed away from this, and his underlying condition was asthma. Like, how many people have asthma, right? So that was shocking. And just the amount of people that I know who have relatives hospitalized or whatnot. So it definitely is. It's been eye-opening, to say the least. I think that also people in New York have been very good. I think probably up until now, because now the curve is somewhat flattening, and I feel like the weather is getting nicer. I'm like, oh gosh, and it's getting close to May 15th. The last date the governor gave about us being, on this extended kind of lockdown situation is May 15th. So that's not so far now. So I think people are kind of seeing the light, but I'm like, oh goodness, hopefully people still use common sense. And I also, like Cesar and I talk about this all the time, like even when we are able to open up as a fully functioning restaurant, it's not going to be the same. We won't have, like, we only have 40 seats in our restaurant. We will maybe at best have 20 seats when we open, because we want everyone who comes to our restaurant to be safe. We ourselves want to be safe. We want the staff to be safe. And it's just the comfort level of people and what that looks like now. I think about any kind of, like, a lot of my friends are in the theater world here, and their lives have been crushed. Like, it's, some people who still can't qualify for unemployment because maybe they're gig based or however it is. I'm like, the landscape is going to look very different once we are all able to reopen, because a lot of people won't be opening their doors, which is very disheartening. And I hope, again, that there's some kind of, I don't know, we need like a miracle fund, really. Like, there's just too many people who still don't have any kind of government help right now.
Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, I think I actually watched a press conference that your governor gave recently, and he impressed me, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what your feeling is, but I feel like he was giving some pretty intelligent answers, and also very open to the questions and open
Yeah.
to finding more answers.
There's a lot of things that we're just kind of waiting to hear, but these are the things that I believe do need to be mandated, because, like I said, when I walked down the block today, it was 62 degrees Fahrenheit, beautiful sunny day. A bar had just reopened, like this window, 1 block from our apartment, and there was probably 25 people standing in a group like a couple of mini groups drinking their cocktails and talking, and half of them didn't have masks on. And I was like, okay, what's happening here? This is disheartening. Now you walk another couple blocks, that's not happening. But I'm like, why is that even happening, right? It's just, so I can see why the governor will want to keep things closed, because if this is like New York City, New York in general is just, it's in a bad place, and it's getting better, but we need it to keep getting better. We don't know when, because if there's a spike, as people say, like when flu season happens again, like we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, everyone talks about the second wave.
Yeah.
Are there protesters in New York like there are in some other American places?
So I haven't seen them in New York, no, and
Okay.
I haven't heard of any of those in New York. So I think I would have heard of that. Yeah, those protesters, my goodness, it's
Yeah, I mean, on one level, I guess it's hard to understand. On another level, you can kind of understand it. Yeah, but the bigger picture, I think some people just don't understand how serious it is, especially for places like New York.
I mean, I feel for anyone right now who's feeling that financial pinch and can't make money, but it doesn't fall up to uh, governors or mayors or whoever it is to reopen. It falls on the federal government to provide relief in the interim. And that, again, like you said, you saw Governor Cuomo. I'm so impressed with how he stepped up this whole time. But at the end of the day, there's only so much a governor can do for their state, right? They all rely on federal aid for things, or federal funds. I mean, New York does put a lot into the federal taxes, and we supply a lot. So, but it's like, what, all of a sudden, what, we don't pay those now? Like, I don't know, like, how does that even work, right? Like, we're kind of like rebelling against the federal government. We can't really do that. So if the federal government is going to not provide what they should be providing, then you are going to see people who are pissed off and who are going to protest. I look at Canada, again, completely different political system, a lot less people, but at the end of the day, that is a system that is helping the people, right? And giving money to people who aren't able to work, so at least they can pay bills, and at least they can put food on their table. And there's empathy there. Here, we're just, you're not getting that federally.
Yeah, and there's a difference between New York versus other places,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of heard that, and I just thought, wow. I mean, you're right. Canada has a lot of pluses right now, and very proud of how people are coming together to help, including the government, and the government is working with the opposition. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, I think. It's definitely highlighting a lot of things, good and bad, I suppose, but I guess we got to keep going with the good.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, the big story in a lot of, I would say, in Canada and the US was the toilet paper hoarding.
Oh my goodness.
Did you guys have that?
Totally. And it's still kind of like an ongoing joke here, because there are places that are still like selling out of toilet paper. Yeah, the toilet paper I never got.
Me neither. It's such a mystery.
At the end of the day, you just need to watch a YouTube video on how people do it in India, and you'll be fine.
True. Anyway, Sarita, it has been so great to see you again, to chat with you. And we can do this more often. We don't have to wait for COVID.
It's been really awesome chatting with you, Sangeeta.
Yeah.